Is it towards the end of spring? Has your spring garden bolted? Has it gone completely crazy? Are you just over it? Do you not know what to put into your garden? Well, lucky for you, Batavia and I are going to break it down today, and we're going to help you decide what you can put in the ground in summer to get a full harvest to make your garden more productive. And you're getting it here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
One in the country,
one in the city.
And this podcast is a companion podcast to the upcoming documentary, Backyard Gardens, a documentary about two families growing food for the first time in a world that lacks nutrition. Okay, before we get started, I want to just say, if you're listening to this, please subscribe and share us with two of your closest gardener friends that would love to listen to us ramble about garden stuff each week. We would greatly appreciate it because we have hit 5,000 listens, downloads, whatever.
Someone clicked on something
Whatever
5,000 times, right?
Yeah. 5,000 people have listened to us talk about gardening. That's crazy,
cool,
isn't
man.
it?
You know, like,
it is.
and I
it's
think
awesome.
maybe because of this, I'm talking to my neighbors less, and I don't know. Like, they may feel like, you know, I'm leaving them out a little bit. I can change that though pretty quickly.
But you've gained 5,000 other neighbors.
How about that? 5,000
all over the world.
Neighbors.
And we are so appreciative. Thank you all so much for listening.
A big thank you.
And now, if you're watching, thank you.
I forgot about that. Actually, I didn't forget about that because I looked at the
camera.
camera.
How could you forget?
But I forgot about the thank you to those that may be watching and didn't necessarily just listen. Hey, listen, watch, do both of them. You can actually just turn it on and look at our faces and not listen if you want. I think that's okay.
That's exactly what I would do. I would just watch people move their mouth. Yeah.
Subtitles would probably be a little bit less freaky though, but go ahead. It's fine. Closed caption, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Have you ever listened to automated subtitles or read them? They're pretty bad. Yeah. So... But so this spring for me, it's summertime here. It's hot. Everything is just bolted. And I know I just did a couple videos on YouTube about it. And Batavia and I just thought, like, you know, every year I go through this myself personally where it's like, what do I put in the ground now? Oh my gosh. And I have to go back and look at my notes. I'm like, oh yeah. But maybe this will help some people out there. Maybe it'll help 5,000 people. Who knows? Or the two friends that you have subscribed to us. That would be awesome.
Well, the good thing about this for me, though, is this is like my prime planting time. So for me, planting in June and July is like, you know, that's how I roll. So I have plenty to share about what to put in the garden and still get some deliciousness in a couple of months.
Well, you have to remember, it's different for you and me,
Yeah,
though,
it is.
as we have discovered over time.
It is, and there are a bunch of different zones. I actually want to ask some folks that are closer to zone 6. If you're using the old kind of zoning map, you may be in zone 5, but for zone 6 or 5, whichever way you're looking at it, like what you're planting and when your plant dates are. Because I felt guilty about my plant start dates. And I'm talking to a lot of people, some of the 5,000, and folks are just getting stuff in the ground like I am in my area or, you know, in my zone. So I'm feeling vindicated.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny too, because like I look at stuff in my zone because I'm in zone 8A.
Sure. Today.
That's right. Yeah. You heard it here. We haven't totally, we actually did a section of a podcast where we totally broke this down, and then that section didn't record. But we're going to go back and actually redo a whole episode about this because it's infuriating. But I'm in zone 8A, And when I go on social media, I'll see people harvesting certain things now, and I have to go, where are they at? What are they doing? Why am I not? Because, you think everybody's in your zone, but they're not.
For me, I feel like my window is so small where I feel like everyone is always on social media. They're always kind of harvesting and gardening and enjoying the fruits of their labor when I'm like looking at dirt. So for me, it's kind of, that's the norm. So yeah. Yeah.
And if you were expecting a garden update this week, this is going to take place of it. So this is going to be intermingled with it. But
like intercropping,
we just felt like it was really important to get this.
Like intermingling. Yeah. I see what you did there.
You're a dork. So yeah, this is going to, because, we're going to be talking about what's kind of going on in our garden, but we figured this was a really important message. So that being said, when you plant, your spring crops are done, how do you go about it? Do you direct sow or do you do transplants?
So just transparency moment. I still haven't made it into a spring garden, but it still falls in line with what we're talking about here. So you're looking at kind of transitioning or starting a summer garden. And then the question is, I do get this question quite often. Is it too late to plant insert vegetable? And for me, again, I have always started, in June-ish. So we'll be in mid-June by the time this airs. So I've been doing a combination of the two, transplants and sowing seeds directly. There are a few vegetables in my area that will do fine with the heat we have, just being sowed in June, and I'll still get harvest in, August and September. So I do a combination of the two.
But now to be fair, you did kind of forego your lettuces and stuff like that this year, right?
Yeah, I guess that's the official word. I did.
Yeah. So if you put that into account, let's say you did plant your lettuce, would it be bolting right about now for you?
Interestingly enough, I do have bolted lettuce. So there was lettuce that overwintered last year that I planted in the fall.
Right.
And so that lettuce, lettuce, spinach, and kale, and collards that all either were planted in the summer or in the fall last year, overwintered, came back. I was able to harvest off of all of it. So in part, I had a default spring garden, if you will. I didn't plant it. But to answer your question directly, absolutely everything's bolted. So the only thing that's left in the garden now, let me take that back. I have some romaine lettuce that bolted. I have some other leafy lettuce, like a more soft lettuce, that looks fine. I'm actually, for dinner, I'm going to grab some leaves and make a salad, I think, because I've eaten all of the junk food that I should eat for today for breakfast and lunch. So we're going to go really light for dinner. I'm going to see what it's like. The kale bolted weeks and weeks and weeks ago. The collard greens were, and I guess it takes a long time for them to go to seed and actually produce seeds. So I ended up yanking those out of the garden. And the last couple of things I had, spinach already was gone. The romaine lettuce, I think. And I think that's one that's, if I look back at the packaging, when I sowed the seeds last year, it was one that preferred the cooler temps. Because there's some lettuces, that are heat tolerant.
So at this point, though, it's safe to say that most everything's bolted. Because for me, it's been probably about a month since things bolted for me. And it's, what is the date? It's June 10th. No, it hasn't been a month. It's probably been 2 weeks or so since it was bolted, unedible bolted, because I'll pick stuff up until the last possible second.
And just a quick note on that. We were talking about that quite a bit, where my lettuce has started to get bitter. Like a week ago or so, I checked it. I still dumped it in a salad because I still had some other greens that were fine. And they kind of covered the slight bitterness of the lettuce. But all the other things I mentioned, the spinach and collards and kale, they were just fine all the way up until I harvested the last bit of them. There were a bunch of leaves on the collard green plants, but they were 4 feet tall, a bunch of flowers, the bees and all had been around. I just didn't even bother to try to taste that to see what they tasted like by then. So,
yeah, I did. In that YouTube video I just did, I was talking about bolting, and I taste tested something.
Yeah,
did you watch it yet?
I did.
Yeah, when I tasted it, I was like, oh, I thought to myself in my head, it's going to be close, but it should be good. And I put it in my mouth and I was like, boy, that's not quite.
Lettuce turns on you, boy.
That's not quite what I wanted. That shit turns bitter. Yeah. So, but yeah, so if you had a whole bed of lettuce, let's just use lettuce because it's common, and it bolted, would you do transplants or seeds typically? Would you direct sow or not?
Good question. I would do neither at this moment on June 10th. So I have a couple that kind of say, oh yeah, they're heat tolerant, a couple packages. But I'm going to wait until I get closer to my fall planting. Cause we're just getting into the super hot part of our summer, like just barely. So for me, I'm going.
So you don't pull them out and replace them?
I'm going to pull the lettuce out and plant something different. Because for me,
that's what I'm saying.
Something different, but not lettuce.
But would you direct sow something different or put a transplant in?
For this, I don't know. It depends. For this lettuce that I'm pulling sometime this week, I'm probably going to put a transplant in. But you're getting into the garden update. So if we're not going to do a garden update, I might as well say it. So I actually did buy a couple of transplants for some garden centers. And I'm going to use those to kind of plug in, if you will.
See, I direct seed. I direct sow.
At this time of year, that's what you're doing? So, okay.
Right now. Yesterday, I direct sowed 8 different things. So, yeah, I direct sow because that's kind of what I want to focus on is like, and this is just what I want to focus on, but is like if you're sitting around and you're like, my lettuce is bolted, I can't get to the store, what can I plant? Wait, I've got these seeds here. Like, I mean, you've got a whole seed vault at your house.
Well, listen now. Listen. We don't want to necessarily air that to 5,000 people, do we? This thing goes a different way. I don't want them.
All they've had to do is listen to about half of the podcast and they'll know about your seed vault. But I mean, and so I try to direct sow just because I already have it available. But also my growing season is longer than yours. Like in the fall, I go a little bit longer. So I have that option. But so that being said, what do you think? This is like question and answer episode apparently, because I feel like that's how it's going. We're going to have to change this format. Works. So are you going to go through and just cut out all your lettuce?
Ben, I'll take cut out for 200. No, so I only have like 3 or 4 lettuce plants from last year. I'm going to pull the one that's bolted. I assume that the others, because I could see the progression of the leaves, are still fine to eat. But I'm going to eat them until they bolt, and then I'm going to pull the plant because it's in a pretty kind of confined area where I don't have to worry about disturbing other things. So I generally will pull a plant if I'm going to replace it with something else or in that area versus like kind of just cutting it low or whatever.
See, I don't do that.
You leave it in there. Feed the soil.
I leave it in there and plant right underneath it. No. I leave the whole plant.
You mentioned this when we were talking about the snow peas. And so tell me again what you do.
So like right now I have my lettuce. The video for this will be coming out next week probably because this is the next topic on switching to a summer garden. But you have your plants, like let's say you have your lettuce, right? And I have lettuce, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage, and they're not really going to do anything. So I'm putting winter squash in because that's one of the good ones to put in is winter squash. And I plant in between them so they stay shaded.
In between, not under though.
And
No,
not under. Because remember, I'm doing the square foot garden. But as I have deduced with square foot gardening, this is my scientific opinion at this point. is in the spring it is true to what it says, but in the summer it's not true to what it says. So some of these things actually need more space. So I took that as an opportunity. So if I have 3 broccoli plants in a row. So in between 2 square feet, because winter squash takes up 2 square feet, I put the seeds.
Okay.
And then I put them next to each other.
Yeah, but isn't this a fine balance though? So giving it some shade versus shading it out. Giving it some shade could be a positive.
Just
shading it out, not so much.
Giving it some shade until it sprouts. You just want that seed to come up, right? So you're just letting the water stay real moist until it can shade out, or until it sprouts, and then I come through and cut it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So then, boom. You know, and if it's like a real windy day or something, though, then I can leave it there and it's protected for until that wind, because we've had a lot of wind lately. Same here. So then it's still kind of protected from it. Well, yeah, you're in the windy city. I hope so. But does that make sense?
Makes sense. But in my mind, it's registering as kind of one more thing to keep track of. So I definitely get the concept of, because we've talked about how sowing seeds, direct sowing seeds and needing to keep that seed moist. And I mean, that's a little bit of work, right? But I'm fine with that part. But the idea of like, literally, I was saying I planted my last batch of potatoes and I was going through my head. I didn't plant them today. I didn't plant them yesterday. Like trying to go back to, because I didn't write it down in my garden notebook that I don't have. So I was trying to figure out when I planted them, right? Yeah. It is what it is. But I said that to say, it's at this point, if you're not keeping a tally of those things, it's very easy for me to like look at that lettuce and just say, I know that it's bolted. I'll get back to it. I may not even be watering in between. I know you're on a sprinkler system, so the entire beds are getting watered. I'm still watering by hand, remember?
Yeah.
So you know how we talk about, I do my garden walk, right? You check out your garden every day. And that clear space makes it a lot easier for me to kind of know what I'm keeping my eye on versus like you're literally hiding seeds in between other veggies, So anyway, I get it, but.
Yeah, but it's one of those things too. So like I went in and I planted multiple winter squashes. So I did one and then I let them come up. And then when I cut them, then I do another one in between another set of plants. And then when they come up, I cut them. So there will be a staggered. So they're not all done at once. I mean, they might only be a week difference, but at least I'm not out there harvesting like a lot at once.
Yeah, but again, so remember with my gardening and my style of, I wouldn't call it a style. The way that I've gardened over the years, I'm like, I set those plants out once and that's it. Right. So there isn't this seasonal gardening that I've been trying to get into. So it takes me, I'm planting for as long as it takes me to get everything into the ground. I'm not coming back around and doing succession planting or anything like that. Yeah. I haven't been. And so this is a real struggle for me. So this episode is going to be informational for me too. It's a real struggle for me to keep track of that. So I haven't even got to the concepts of how to manage that the best like you're describing. So, I mean.
So how about this? How about you just sit back and kick your feet up and I'll just talk? Finally, I know. I get a break.
No, we're not going to do that.
It's not really is it considered succession planning?
I think that your description of carrots the other week is week 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I think just coming in and planting a different thing at a different time. You're right. That's not really succession planting.
So if you think about it, like with me, if I cleared out that one bed, then I would just have one bed for the rest of the year that didn't get used. That would be a travesty.
But it all rolls in because you already had something planted there in the spring, right? So that's done. What I'm trying to get to is, or where I have been is, I plant everything at the beginning, the end of spring, beginning of summer. Things are done traditionally when the cold kills it. Right. So there isn't I'm not pulling up a bunch of things. Right. So traditionally going back years, I didn't plant lettuce because you're really not planting lettuce at the beginning of June. It's going to be too hot. Right. So last year I did plant a little bit earlier where I was able to get a little bit of lettuce, a little bit of bok choy. But again, that stuff bolted really quickly.
Yeah, it's tough. I think when it comes to that, you got to get stuff out in the garden quick, early. And I think it's actually a lot earlier than we give it credit for. I really do think that. I think that it's, I think we would be surprised because some stuff likes to be cold.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that quite a bit, right? So after I had sworn off, all right, clearly I've passed up the spring garden time. I was starting to think to myself, like, but it's totally possible in my zone to have a spring garden. But you also have that, seeds like to be warm to germinate. But how in the heck is it going to be warm in March? But anywho, let's save that for another day. So
that's another time. So as far as like sowing seeds, the ones that I think work the best. Do you want me just to kind of spit them off?
Yeah, I have a couple too. I have a contribution to make to this episode.
Well, then how about we do the back and forth?
Sure,
then?
I have like two, but
we'll
go
standby.
back, forth, then forth. Yeah.
Yeah. So I already said winter squash.
You're sowing those directly.
Okay. So we're just, and this is what I'm giving is all direct sow because you're eliminating that germination time and all that. So, and then another one is green beans.
All right.
And
done.
I would.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So wait, we are going. You said one. I was supposed to say one. So we're going to pretend like I said green beans, and then now it's back on you.
Okay. Hold on. Let me hit the rewind button. Go ahead.
Going backwards.
So you say it.
Green beans. I've only direct sowed them, and that's what's absolutely recommended. This time of year, right? So you have like between June, July, early July at the latest, to be able to kind of get a full harvest off of those.
Yeah, I can plant them consistently until August. Then you're cutting it close. But do you know why I wait?
No.
Because of the bugs.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Japanese beetles / June bugs. If you wait until June-ish to plant them, you won't have those issues as much because that's when they're the most active. So that's why I tried to steal it from you. And I had the listening device, so I was listening.
You could see the seeds floating around my head. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big one, I think, because last year I just got devastated by Japanese beetles at first, and then like clockwork, they just stopped. And as I went through and did my research, I was like, oh,
timing,
okay.
Yeah.
So they only come for a certain period. So the whole thing was like start them later. So that made sense,
Is it me or you?
Another one. What's your other one? You give me your other one since you have a limited few.
So at this time, thinking about when this is airing, you could still direct seed cucumbers. I'm talking primarily about starter plants though, but you could buy either a starter plant as a cucumber or you could direct sow. You're getting right to the edge though, when it comes to, the time for those to produce, but those are super duper quick. So I'm a big fan of the cucumber.
Yeah, and they're recommended to actually direct sow over transplants because
I've struggled. This is second or third year that I've direct sowed, that I've tried to start cucumber plants from seed. Last year I direct sowed them around this time of year, and I was panicked because I didn't see anything coming up. It was super duper chilly last year for us in June, and I was like, I'm not going to have cucumbers. I'm not going to have pickles, because I was determined to can, last year, pickles in particular. Yeah. And so I went out buying transplants, and then I noticed that some of the cucumber seeds started to, pop up.
Yeah, mine popped up in a day.
Yeah, I actually have, lemon cucumbers that a friend gave me some seeds last year. And so, it's just the shape and just, a little bit milder of a cucumber.
I like standard cucumbers, man. Pickling cucumbers. I'm a classic guy. What is wrong with that?
Nothing
Tradition.
wrong at all. And they popped up pretty quickly. Cucumbers is my next one.
And they're good for succession planting too.
Yeah. But they come on crazy. I have far too many cucumber plants too. But I was saying that I'm struggling with it now, and I'll have to, I probably won't. I want to, but I probably won't. Look at the timing for this year. I didn't get the timing right because my cucumbers were pretty healthy and then they weren't. So I'm watching them now. Those are the first things I got into the garden. And remember I had 72 tomato starts that got down to 60 and so on. So I had more cucumbers than I intended to plant. And so I've actually been swapping a couple of those out. But none of them were really in great condition. And I say that if they were in a store, I wouldn't have bought them. But it's like, okay, here they are. We'll see how they goes.
Oh, dude, none of my cucumbers are beautiful ever.
Cucumber plants?
I've rarely...
We're talking about, right?
No, my cucumbers.
Oh, I'm not even at the point of talking about the actual fruit itself. I'm talking about the plants. And we know the risk of a plant going into the ground that isn't the healthiest or doesn't look the healthiest. Now, there's also a fine line between that too, because sometimes they just want to be in the ground. It's kind of like the pot struggle that they go through. And then it's like once they get into the ground, they can take off. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they grow so fast, and that's why it's a good one. And another one that goes along with that, and this is a twofer, is a squash and zucchini.
Oh, yeah.
Like summer squash and zucchini. Those are really good too because they're pretty fast. I think it's like maybe 40 to 50 days from seeding can start getting a harvest. We'll see.
I actually started, so I'll do the reverse of it for zucchini. I did like a white squash, which, part of it's just like, oh, that's going to be kind of cool. So really kind of small squash. And then the traditional kind of green summer squash. And again, 2 sickly plants. I started them from seed probably last month, I guess. And they weren't looking good, after I got past the feat of hardening everything off, and then it was like, get everything in the ground. And I'm still working on that. And so they were in their little pots looking like, what are we going to do? But anywho, I planted 2 of them in one container, knowing that that's not enough space for zucchini plants. But I was just going to sacrifice one of them. But now they've been in the container for about a week and they've perked up. So now, it's the hard decision. Which of them has to go?
Were they root bound?
We talked about that. I don't know. No, not when I planted them. I think they were just a little bit lighter and yellow. I just think, I had stopped fertilizing because I was like on to the next thing that I was trying to focus on and didn't keep up with that schedule. So
they really don't like to be started in pots either.
Well, you said that, but I've only ever
transplanted.
I've only ever grown zucchini from starter plants that I've purchased.
Yeah, I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying they really don't like it. Like I think you have to get them at like the right time, because they're just such rapid growers. If you're in my zone or lower, or maybe even yours, you could probably squeeze in a watermelon seed.
I hope
right
so.
Now, or a or a
cantaloupe.
What's the other one?
I hope so because I have.
Thank you.
That's thinking. That's my thinking sound.
Yeah.
Beginning of June. So we're now about almost 2 weeks later. So those 2 weeks are really going to count. But I direct sowed seeds for melons and they've germinated. I did like a honeydew melon cantaloupe. They've germinated, but they still have a road to go. So we'll see if we actually get to the end of the season.
You started growing honeydew?
Yeah, but these were shorter, a shorter number of days. Do you not recommend honeydew?
Do you know? So do you know my feelings about honeydew? Nobody should ever eat or grow honeydew melon ever. And to be fair to the honeydew melons in the world, I have never had an actual honeydew grown in a yard, but I am not a fan. So
I am struggling with the amount of weirdo that I just witnessed. Like I've seen a lot of things flare up with you, and I was nervous. Like, how in the hell would I have known honeydew was going to set them off, right? Now, it could be for the reason that everyone, thinks of anytime you go to a buffet, anytime you have a conference, anytime there's that honeydew.
That's exactly what it is.
On like that breakfast fruit platter. I mean, I feel like it's like sawdust. Like at some point there was honeydew that was good. I don't remember it. I don't remember when I had good honeydew, but it's my quest now. So
You want me to tell you a story about melons and me?
Is it going to explain what just happened about 45 seconds ago? Okay.
No, it's going to explain what you just said. It's going to put it in perspective. So a couple years ago, we were living in New England, and I don't know how many years. It was probably 8 years ago now. Damn, I'm getting old. But yeah, when you start doing that. But I remember I went to a farmer's market, and the guy was sitting there, and he was selling everything. And I said, you know, how much for the cantaloupe? And he goes, oh, you can have it for free. Now, I had never had a homegrown cantaloupe at this point. Never even thought about growing it. And I said, you sure I can have it free? He's like, man, it's about to go bad. Just take it. And he was like, as a matter of fact, you can take them all. So I said, okay, I took 10 cantaloupes. I mean, hell, free. I just put it in the compost pile. I didn't care. I cut into that bad boy. Holy shit. It was the best thing I had ever put in my mouth. It was a nectar of God himself. And it was nothing that I had ever tasted anywhere. And it didn't have that same, you know how cantaloupe kind of has like that musky flavor sometimes? It did not have that. It was pure sugar.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure with a name like Honeydew Melon, if you grow it, it's probably the exact same.
And I intentionally didn't start those indoors because I know those, and it even says it on the package when it comes to watermelons and other melons, like they prefer to be direct sowed, but they do, you know, again, it's not always possible. So I bought another starter plant, and I limited myself with starter plants. Flowers is a whole different episode, so we'll cover that later. But for the vegetable starter plants, I did limit myself to things that I really wanted to grow, and I just hadn't had luck with. And you already know what that is. 5,000 folks already know what that is too. But I did buy one more, like a 4-pack of it's some different kind of melon that I've not had. So the thought is, one, if I don't buy it in the store, it could be something that I love. Wouldn't that be cool? Then 2, I bought it as a transplant in case I don't get any melons off of the seeds that I direct sowed. It'd be nice to actually try to grow melons and at least get a few melons, you know, even if it is from the starter plant. So, I think that I've seen the sugar babies, which, gosh, you know, at this point, we're at the point already in the season where with the stuff I'm growing, it's going to be impossible for me to keep track. So I think it's sugar baby watermelon. It's definitely a shorter season watermelon.
The little personal ones.
I think it's that, but it may not be that because I'm kind of a weirdo about those kind of things too. We'll see. At some point I'll go in the yard and figure it out.
Do you know why there's melons that you get at like the buffets and stuff like that are real bland?
Because they're not in season or they're being picked earlier.
Because they overwater them.
Oh, you know, I have read that somewhere. Not the reason why the buffets are bland, but the danger of overwatering melons.
And strawberries and a lot of stuff, you'll lose flavor. So it's very important, especially like right when they're ripening. It's important that you start holding back water.
You're a fan of that, but I only do it by accident.
Of what?
Of holding back water.
Well, I didn't say I do it on purpose, and it actually works out pretty good for me because it's so damn hot that it ends up holding back. So like everything right now, because it's, well, not now, but like a month ago, so cool, and I keep pretty much the same watering schedule. They get it a lot, but then as it goes down and it gets hotter and hotter, they kind of dry out a little bit. But I learned that because I did it one year. One year I just had them split, so that was just not good. Then the next year they were bland, and then the next year I would cover them before I watered them because I wanted to see, and they were sweeter. They were actually sweeter. I could not believe it. Yeah.
Do I have one?
There you go.
Do I have one?
Huh?
Do I have another for the list of what to start? I do.
Do you?
Not from seed though, because that's not a thing for this fruit. And we are trying to show fruit a little bit more love. So strawberries. But you need them as transplants. And this really would be, so the garden gods say, if you plant a strawberry plant, you really should not let it bear fruit that first year, but instead, let it develop roots and then look forward to next year. But I don't always listen to the garden god, so there's that.
I did it last year when I planted my strawberry patch, and it was worth it.
See, I didn't. I planted mine last year, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be around next year to get these strawberries. So it is hard. It's hard for me to pinch off those flowers, and I did a pretty big patch.
That's hard, man.
And so I totally got really small berries, maybe a pint or something, maybe. So I actually moved them into a different bed this year, and I thought about it because I didn't really have this one on my list, but when you talked about not watering, that's one of the beds that I haven't watered at all. Like I watered when I first transplanted like a month or something ago, and when I moved the strawberry plants from one bed to another, and I haven't watered at all. We've had like 5 days of like pretty warm weather and then like 2 or 3 days of rain. I just let that go. And in part it's because the soil that I used, it was the last of the soil drop from last year, and it's just really thick. It's not ideal for garden beds, almost muddy like. Yeah. And so I just didn't want to continue to add water to that. So anywho, I had some this morning with a croissant. And man, it was golden. A croissant. What? A croissant. Yeah.
Oh, I hate it when I hate that pronunciation, but I know it's how it's supposed to be. But down here we call it croissant.
Yeah, I guess I can't hear the difference, so it's all
My
good.
mom calls it croissant.
Okay, I can hear that difference.
Yeah, you can. You think so?
So I said that to say I made the conscious decision not to add jelly to it, the croissant. And I did need to because the strawberries are really sweet. Yeah.
Dude, I'm not going to steal your recipe today. Oh, yeah. Batavia's got the recipe for the day. But speaking of strawberries, I don't even put jelly on my peanut butter and jelly anymore. I just slice strawberries and put them straight up, and it is awesome. I've been doing that for about 6 months now. I love it. It's great. Yeah, you just put the fruit directly on it.
I feel like we have to stop now and do the recipe of the day, and that needs to be it. Like, I'm so mad that we didn't do this yesterday before I picked those few strawberries, because I totally would have had a peanut butter and strawberry sandwich. I can't wait. But guess what? I have a strawberry patch in my backyard, which means there will be more strawberries.
Well, it's the same idea as putting peanut butter and banana.
It's peanut butter and normally jelly for me is one of those things that I don't eat it often, maybe once a month or something. But every time I eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I always say, damn, this is so good. Why don't I eat it more often? So,
the old standby. That's what we call it. The old standby.
So between peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or peanut butter and strawberry sandwiches and tomato sandwiches this summer, man, I'm gonna have to start picking up my miles and walking a little bit more, man.
So, yeah. Actually, you know what I did today? Totally off subject, but I actually started running again.
Good for you.
I'm training for another triathlon.
That's super cool. Well, with everything being canceled, or are you gonna do like
We're training for next year.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Super slow because I get injured because I have a deformity in my left leg. So I have to be careful, and I don't want to lose my summer of surfing. So I'm just going to take it super easy and just enjoy it, not push. But
well,
anyways.
Good for you.
So, and that being said, there will be more peanut butter and strawberries in my life.
Yeah, it's
from
a really
now on,
good
so.
after
it's a power
workout
food
snack. Or even during if you're doing those
like
long bike rides and stuff. Yeah. I'm not going to say anything like that. Although, based on the things I've been knocking down with my hips, in my house, and I really need to get on that bandwagon. But I'm convinced that I'm just working on getting into garden shape right now. And once I'm able to do that, I can think about something else.
Yeah, and actually, and there's one thing I wanted to ask you too. When you eat a peanut butter and banana sandwich, what do you put on it? I never eat
peanut butter and banana because bananas.
Well, people that you know,
honey.
Really? Do you know a lot of people in North Carolina put on it? I don't know, maybe other places, but here,
I knew you were going to
mayonnaise.
say that. I don't know why I knew it. Maybe in my subconscious
So
I heard
gross.
it, but I want to unhear it.
Yeah, I want to unhear it too. I want to unspeak it.
They're in the same camp of people that eat French fries with mayo or mayonnaise.
Wait, what you mean
the people that eat peanut butter and banana, and it's a they, them. Yeah. Oh, good night. Yeah. So, listen. Yeah. If it's 4,999 people once we get done here, so be it. Like, you are not welcome here. No, I'm totally joking. You're a weirdo, but we all are. So.
Yeah.
All right. You got any others?
But and way to keep me on track. I like it. I did, and then it slipped my mind because I started talking. Parsnips.
I made a list. I'm looking at my list here. Parsnips. Okay.
So yeah, parsnips are a good one too because it takes them a long time, but they actually get sweeter after the first frost. So you want to leave them in the ground until that frost comes.
Is that an old wives' tale? So
no.
And I feel like I need to do a full-on experiment, but I'm not sure exactly how to judge it. So I was over at my mom's yesterday, and they were sitting out. Her and some of her neighbors were sitting out in their lawn chairs. And it's the cutest thing. And, I came up. Well, I went over because she wasn't answering her phone. And with all that's going on in the world, like, you can't do that. And so...
No, you got to answer your phone.
So I rolled up real fast and I jumped out of the car, and I had a feeling she was out sitting out front, but I came out and I was chatting with some of the other folks, her neighbors, and we're talking gardening because that's how I roll, right? And collard greens. And the first thing that one of the women said was... Miss Jackson said, and it's okay if they get a little bit of cold on them. I said, yeah, because they say, she's like, she finished my sentence, that they're sweeter. I said, yeah, that's what they say. And I'm thinking to myself, Miss Jackson, I think you've bought into it too. I'm not sure. Like, I've had collard greens in particular. I've had lettuce and spinach not lettuce, but spinach and kale that have gotten a little bit of that frost on them. And it's even hard for me to compute those types of vegetables being sweeter. So I've heard it over the years. I've even said it, but it's just kind of a thing that you say because that's what gardeners say. But I always say, so they say.
I just did a little math equation. Oh, come on. And I know what your problem is.
Wait.
Garden therapy. Hashtag garden therapy.
First off, second and third off, when did we identify that I had a problem?
I identified it just there. You're scared of plants and cold. Aren't you? You can't have dead air. You got to speak.
I'm thinking. Yeah, you know what?
You are.
I'm not ready to commit to being afraid of it. However, and I'm okay with fear. However, you may be on to something. And as I process this in the moment of the therapy session, I didn't realize, don't send me a bill for this. I am thinking to myself, there is something about always trying to beat the cold, for gardening in particular, but just in my life living in Chicago in the States, right? So it's like, you're trying to beat the cold, quite literally. Get back home before it gets really, really cold. Plant your tomatoes before, pull the tomatoes, cover your plants because it's going to be cold. So it's a whole thing. And so I have literally been gardening around the cold, so.
And you should be embracing it.
And I know that.
You know it, and you just won't do it.
No, you know what it is?
What is
they say I should. Not the banana mayo peanut butter. Not those they, right? They say I should, but I'm just not buying it. That's totally what what happened. I was about to use a big swear word, but I'm going to pull back there. That's totally what happened with this spring.
Yeah.
I just didn't buy into it, right? Yep. And I know it's not a thing to be bought into, but for me, clearly it is.
Well, first of all,
I'm leaning back. This is like a weight off of my shoulders. First, identify the problem, right?
So if you guys want, you can check on my Instagram account in the next couple of days, The Backyard Gardener, spelled Gardner, and I will show you the check that Batavia is going to send me for this garden therapy.
I'm going to send you my payment's going to be in seeds, though, just so you know it's not going to be like, there's no cash. This is a bartering system. I'm going to send you all the seedlings
But,
of the kale, collards, and cabbage that I killed. See if you can bring those back, buddy. No,
yeah. I mean, if you embraced it where you are, you could have an awesome spring and fall garden, especially in the fall, because there are things that just like cold.
Yeah. And
and that's what we're talking about today. This feeds directly into what we're talking about.
Now, this is the same person, this being me, she, her. I'm the same person. I'm about to start bamming on the desk. I'm pulling back. I'm trying to. Yeah, I know. I see. I'm looking at the desk and I'm putting my finger down. So I'm the same person that wants to harvest veggies in the winter, which is crazy when you think of, I do really kind of shun the cold. But that's also the explanation as to why I didn't pull those triggers last year. Why was all of this overwintering that I talked about that I had? It was because I was so slow to plant later in the summer for a air quote fall garden. I was literally planting October 1st or something. Our last frost date would be like the 28th, 29th of October. And I'm putting seeds in the ground on October 1st.
See, in your climate, you can't bullshit about when to plant. You got to be on the ball. Like for me, I got some leeway, except for when I start my seeds in the wintertime. I don't have no leeway. But as far as putting stuff in the ground, you got to really be on the ball.
That's exactly it. That's it. I'm pointing to you as in you get it, right? That's exactly
yes, you
it.
Are.
And that makes me anxious, to be quite frank. I still have the quarter in the garden therapy, #garden therapy. It makes me anxious. It makes me nervous. Like there's the early in the summer, late the now, get things in the garden. Like I'm literally going through that now. Like I got to get things in the garden. I want to plant my flowers because I want to look at how beautiful they are. I want to plant my veggies. And so there's a relief once I got all of that in the garden. Not this year because I'm still in the middle of it. But normally it's like you could sit back and relax. You're in maintenance mode. But then to come back around and say, all right, now it's the second planting, and I want to do it, but it just takes me time. I'm a little bit slower to the draw.
See, and I think this is another one of those moments where what I'm about to say is going to come out making me sound like a total ass, but I'm just going to let it roll.
You have been for the last 7 minutes.
I think that.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I've been giving you garden therapy. Don't even give me that.
I don't have to like it. You could be much nicer.
No,
you could be
don't.
nicer.
But the thing is like, so people and this is a very general statement. There might not be anybody listening to this that has, but like I was this person for a long time. You start a spring garden. Everybody's anxious. You transition to summer, which is what we're talking about now. And then they want to let it run as long as possible when you can, in fact, get a whole nother season out of your garden. And it's a tough decision. And that's where me planting the winter squash in between the other two plants, that's where that came from. Because if you're planting cold stuff, like I'm going to use a Batavia term, the brassicas, they don't like to get hot. But I have to put stuff in the ground here. It'll still be 90 degrees. But if you apply shade to them, then it cools them right down. And then it allows them to get established as the days start to cool off. And then they'll start to grow. Because some things just won't grow when it's hot. You know what I mean? Like you saw my Brussels sprouts. Like that, as big as they were, they would not have gotten any bigger. They would have still made their, I want to say fruit, but the Brussels sprouts. But they wouldn't have gotten any bigger. Because, I mean, you can get Brussels sprouts that are 3 feet tall, loaded all the way up the stems. But those would have stayed 1.5 feet tall all year, and they wouldn't have produced.
Go back. I mean, you're speaking to me. I feel like these are my garden demons, right? So.
But they're not just yours. That's important to know. They're everybody's.
I'm clearly not special because of this. Because so many of you have this problem too, I'm sure, right? So there is you've planted it. And if you start to get a harvest from it, I mean, the idea, I can't even imagine the idea of pulling out something that is performing for that next thing. You know, it's like, why is that not good enough? So for me, again, normally that's not been my issue because it's just, I'm just happy to finally get tomatoes in September, right? You know, and I'm just, again, trying to beat time, hoping that many more ripen before the frost hits. But
why do you have to pull it up in September?
No, I wouldn't. I'm just saying, like, the idea of you're getting something, there's a plant that's producing, but your broccoli is a good example. No, Brussels sprouts are a good example of that. You pulled it. It would have produced, but you're clearing way for something that will produce more and better. That's what I got from what you were doing.
Yeah. I mean, well, it'll produce garbage is what it'll produce. Like, it wouldn't resemble a Brussels sprout.
But would it be tasty?
You know what I mean?
Maybe. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But it's not worth it because I told you, and I'll tell everybody, that last year I had the same. This has been an ongoing saga with me and Brussels sprouts. And I've used that exact term like 5 times this week, where last year I grew them in a bed and I didn't realize that they like cold weather. And I let them grow all year and they look like crap all year. And I let them go. And essentially what I did is I wasted an entire bed, a quarter of my growing space in that area was just wasted. And they just look bad the whole time. I should have just pulled them up, put something in its place, you know. But, you know, what I'm saying is, like, when do you start harvesting tomatoes generally in your
August. Area? Mid to late August. And I say that, so let me just clarify for other zone 6ers. That's because my tomato plants are going into the garden normally in June. Like, that's the earliest I think I've ever planted a tomato plant. Maybe my earlier gardens when my grandparents knew better, maybe I planted that earlier, you know, but my later gardens, it's just been me. Yep, June. So yeah, I am. So good, real quick side note, I have determinate Roma tomatoes. And it's funny because that plant will still be producing and tomatoes will still be ripening once we get to October because they've only had like 4 months total, you know, so...
Okay, so hold on, stop right there. So at that point, are they producing strong or are they dwindling down?
I don't understand the words.
So you know how like at the height of the season, you'll be pulling every day, you're just pulling tomatoes like
No,
constantly.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to understand the words. There's still tomatoes on the plant.
Okay, well, think about it this way. There's 5,000 people that want to hear it. So they want to understand.
Okay, sorry, guys. Sorry. I just, okay, deep breath. No, they're not producing at their strongest.
Okay, so they're starting to dwindle. It's starting to get cooler, right? So before all of this takes place, if you just put something in between your plants, they'll still grow and nothing will get hurt, right? So listen.
Nope, I'm not doing it. Nope.
You take your
4,999 people can do it because I listen too, so I'm one of those people. I did try that with beets, and which I think beets is not a friend to tomatoes. Gosh, it's so twisted in my head.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
And I tried it with lettuce, and I think at that point, either I didn't give the lettuce just didn't produce because my tomatoes were in full swing. And when I say full swing, it's leaf wise, so they were completely shaded. Now, if I would have let things go, maybe they would have produced lettuce for me, you know, later in the year. I'm not sure, but I get what I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So, okay. So, and you just kind of pushed me into the next section where you're talking about your tomatoes are leafed out, right? But you know that you can trim your tomatoes, correct? So at this point, you take your lettuce and in between your 2 tomato plants, right? I have to do because we're on video now. So you have your 2 tomato plants. And then if you go through, you have your lettuce here in the middle. You can trim the suckers off of this to let more light in. And that's going to do 2 things. That's going to let that plant below get more light. It's going to keep it cool. It's going to do 3 things. Keep it cool. And it's also going to allow you to get more tomatoes off of your plant because there's going to be more energy that aren't used up by those suckers who get giant. You know what I mean?
So 2 notes there.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
It's more work, right? And I'm just being real, right? So it's more work to do that.
Yeah.
Probably more important than that. For those that may try this, just be careful because you can introduce disease as you're kind of cutting plants, even at that stage. The third thing is that actually is my plan this year. At the beginning of the summer garden season, I'm saying this. And remember, I said it's more work. So I'm making a commitment. Ben doesn't know about this. Write it down. I'm trying to think about how to walk this back now. No. So I'm doing two things real quick to note. And this isn't kind of the middle of the season for tomato plants. This isn't on subject, but to accommodate what Ben is describing, which is the topic for today. I'm doing a combination of letting my tomatoes go once they get big. And you don't have to do this to do what you're getting at, Ben, but I'm going to do some single stemming. And I've been uber nervous about that, but I'm going to do that where these plants won't have single stem pruning for my tomato plants, where I'm going to grow the tomato basically on one lead stem, which means I'm going to cut the suckers, if I can clearly identify them, as they kind of pop up. So that...
Do you know how to identify them?
I mean, I've watched enough videos to know it. It's just in the moment. I'm going to be, prune shy or whatever. So those plants will have a little bit more space around them, and it's going to give me an opportunity to kind of interplant, if you will. I do already have some pepper plants planted near those because a good garden buddy of mine and a general friend really recommended planting peppers near tomatoes. So
who did that?
It was he's a little bit weird, but
yeah, he is. He's got to be odd to give advice like
my
that.
My buddy Ben, co-host of the Backyard Garden podcast.
I can't believe you actually did it though. You're gonna be happy.
Well, in part I did it because who knows? I'm always up for good advice, and also I had 800 pepper plants. So I said, okay, where can I put them? So I'm looking forward to it though. So we'll see. Yeah,
it's when you cut the suckers off. I mean, and there might be some people that don't know what a sucker is. So if you look at the stem of the tomato, there's going to be a big branch that comes off, and it's not going to have anything on it. And the actual part that produces the tomato comes out above it. So generally, you trim those off, but you can't trim them all off.
Elbow.
They have a purpose. You know that, right?
Other than to produce more tomato.
They produce more energy for the plant. So you can't go through and clear cut them.
Well, you
gotta
can.
be careful.
You can, but you do have to be careful because it's I've seen it work. I know. Now the real test.
I know. I've seen it work too.
The real test is going to be, because what I've done is, again, a little bit off topic, but what I've done is put a beefsteak tomato, growing it regularly, and a beefsteak tomato, going to try the single stem method. And I've been wanting to try it for the last couple of years, but I haven't because I've only had so many tomato plants that I just didn't want to F it up. But now, since I have a few more, I can try this experiment and really see if one plant produces more tomatoes than the other. So to be continued on that piece of it.
Yeah. And so I go through my tomatoes and I just I start from the bottom and work my way up, and I don't trim them all. I trim them up to a certain point, and then I just kind of let it go. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. I'm on the fence about it. I know I've seen things work, but at the same time, I'm trying to make things easy.
Well, I don't know.
And there comes a time,
some of the stuff you're describing doesn't feel that easy. I don't know. You're
what?
Tuck this in here, underneath there, leave this dead thing here. Click your heels there, and I don't know.
Tune in next week. You'll see.
Okay,
I'm gonna show you. It's not that hard. I'll show you. It seems difficult,
and by
but
difficult,
it's not.
Difficult wouldn't be the right word. It is more steps to kind of your garden maintenance. So it's just generally, again, more work.
I guess. I don't know. It's something I've always done. So it just makes sense.
This goes back to, we talked about this, or I talked about it a few episodes back. Who knows? 10, 12, 15, the last week's episode. It's all what you see value in. So you're a lazy gardener by your own, admission, right? And
maybe I'm not that lazy.
I don't think you are. I think that there, again, things that you find valuable, or you do it out of habit. And there are other things that you say, and so you shun those things off, right?
I'm looking at our time to make sure we have time to get into this.
That's I stepped in it.
I want to do you a favor.
I stepped in it, and I'm trying to figure out, like, I didn't eat lunch, which I never do before these episodes. And I'm just like, do I have the energy, the physical energy to go through this with you?
Yeah, well.
I need an IV. Can I get some fluids in here? Good gosh. Okay, go for it. Go for it.
It is hot as fire in my office too, but it's no, the more we talk about it, I think it's because I do call myself a lazy gardener, and I 100% do think I am. But I think you're right when it comes down to what kind of gardener are you? So Batavia and I, we did talk about this previous, but not for the podcast. But there's the hobbyist gardener. And then what was the other one you said? I don't even remember.
I don't remember either. I don't know. We got to move on though.
I take it more seriously, gardener. Insert whatever term you want. So, and I take it fairly serious, but my biggest goal is to make a small garden productive as it possibly can, to squeeze everything I can out of it each year. That's my goal.
And I admire that about you as a gardener. And I do think that it's almost like the subtitle or the caption should be that when you talk about these things. So I'm teasing you when I say, like, it's a bunch more work. I know you're doing it for the purpose of, you're not pulling plants because you want to pull plants, right? You've done the math in your head and you realize, okay, I'm going to gain more if I do this now. And again, you're much more logical than I am with gardening. I mean, I'm just going to keep it real, right? So I am kind of dreamy. You said earlier on, there's some people that want to leave things in the garden and let it go to continue to get, food off of it. And I'm that person. It's like, I don't want to pull a plant. We've talked about this, even sick plants. I'm pausing before I pull it. And the logical gardener in me knows that it's time, but it's a real hard choice. And to be quite frank, and I'll say it about myself. So perhaps if I say it about myself, it's not as offensive. There's a level of maturity when it comes to gardening too, right? So there's a level of maturity when it comes to gardening too, right? I'm going to repeat it.
It's the worst way. It's the worst way to start off something.
I'm going to put myself in this category just in case I offend you. I'm offending myself too. I'm looking and it looks like there's a special delivery garden related that I'm waiting on. I'm looking out the window, but I can't see if she's coming to my yard. Keep on talking. I'm going to listen to see if I hear the gate open. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But anywho, I mean, I think it's again, I admire the idea of, you will, for many, it seems like drastic measures, but you take steps to ensure.
It does seem like drastic measures. But go
ahead.
I was going to say, it just comes with experience though. You know what I mean? Like when you first start, and I'm sure you've come across this where you're like, first of all, like how we're like totally abandoned the topic of the podcast. Well, we're hour in,
so we could transition into just our garden talk,
Yeah. So it's, you start and you just want to baby everything and you just want to get every little bit. But after a while, man, it's like, damn. I got tomatoes coming out my ears. I've been giving them away. Can't nobody take them. I'm like, it's time for me to get some heads of cabbage up in this piece. Especially for me, because I can be harvesting that stuff all the way up until December. Yeah. And some stuff, like my broccoli, I got my broccoli out of the garden and my cabbage also in like February and March this year. Really March, I started getting it. So it's like, that's all that space wasted. You know what I mean? So it's just all that work you put into it. And I feel like people just kind of, and everybody's guilty of this, especially at first. You want to handhold everything and baby it. But those plants have been growing for millions of years this way. And so now it's time to just say, you know what? I'm not going to get as much because how many fried green tomatoes are you going to eat?
It's a popular request of friends and family. Do you have any green tomatoes? So let me say this because you, and I'm not offended by this. you said, it's really about experience. And I think that's spot on, right? So I've been gardening a lot of years, but a lot of my garden years are with some pretty staple vegetables, right? So, I mean, if we were to map this out on a project plan, because it's a part of, what I do for a living. So get uber technical. Like there are a number of years where, right?
Here we go. Everybody hold on to your pants.
This is about to get exciting, right? There's a part of this where it is, your traditional, if you could find it in a big box store, chances are I was growing it. And so these last handful of years, I've been exploring growing different things, which means there are different requirements, which means there are different times of year that I'm planting them, which means that I am starting to be faced with making some of the tougher decisions that you've been making in your garden for many, many years, right? So it absolutely is experience, right? And no, it is. But we also have to recognize that everyone isn't in the same space that you are or the space that I'm trying to get to. So it could be, and I still in my head process it this way. If I get a shit ton of tomatoes, I'm satisfied with my garden this year, right? It doesn't matter that I could have gotten a different variety of vegetable had I made that decision in September to say the tomato plants aren't as productive. Let me pull them. I am going to commit today to never pulling a tomato plant that is healthy from my garden. I will not do it. I'm speaking for all of the they that don't want to do it either. No, seriously. So I definitely get where you're going. It takes some time for some of us to get there. Some of us won't ever get there.
And this is going to be unfolded in another episode, 100%. Because this really needs more talk. But when it comes down to it, for me too, it's like, you put a lot of effort into your garden, right? And you put a lot of money into your garden. So it's time is money. So I want mine, when I sit back and look at it, I don't want to sit back, at the end of the year and be like, damn, I spent 20 hours a week in the garden, spent $400 and ate $20 worth of vegetables. Boy, it's a good year. You know what I mean? Like for me, my measure of success is, okay, snow peas are $5.99 a pound. I got half a pound a day for 2 weeks. Do the math.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I'm like, there's my measure of success.
But this is a challenge. Like I feel like we should cut off the last 20 minutes and make a whole nother, no, I'm not serious, and make a whole nother episode because I really want to dig in. And as a timeout. Okay. No. I'm in part just teasing. As a timeout, the doorbell rang after I was looking out of the window, which means I'm certain my package has come because my mail person, this is the second time she's come. So she's coming with the special deliveries now, right? And so I'm like really on the edge of my seat about what I need to do with the things she's delivering.
Do they need to come inside?
No, it's fine to be outside a little while longer. Thank you. But, I think it's relative, right? So that one description where you said you had a bed that you left after you pulled it. Well, yeah, you got nothing out of that bed after you pulled the stuff out of it. So that's a big fat goose egg, right? But I think the issue that, I don't know if you're hearing me when I say it, there are many gardeners I've been one and I'm probably still one. You're getting vegetables out of your garden. Right? Vegetables are coming out. There may not be, it may not be the exact amount of each vegetable that you want, but it's still something that you've grown and you're satisfied with that. Now, if you do this step and take this turn, perhaps you could, again, have a more diverse profile of the vegetables that you're harvesting. But I don't know if everyone's thinking it through to that degree. I'm sure some of the 5,000 are. But I'm sure some of the 5,000 would rather not spend that extra time sowing those additional seeds and just, again, give tomatoes away for, Halloween.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it depends, too. Well, first of all, if you're going to be that person in the neighborhood, that would be terrible.
You'll pay for that, dearly, but go on.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, too, and it's just like letting your spring garden stop and then not doing anything for the summer is... You can do that, but what I'm saying is you can still get this stuff out of it and plant. That's what I'm trying to say. I
understand that, but you could still get stuff out of it without planting more too. Now, this doesn't apply to every vegetable, but
Well, let's say this too, like, you like tomatoes.
One of my faves.
But is there a spring, do you like collards? Yeah, that's one of your favorites, right? For spring. So like,
because
what's your favorite for spring?
Collards really quickly. I'm going to be growing them all summer and harvesting them late summer, early fall. Spring, I would really have liked to have planted lettuce and spinach. So those are a couple of my favorites, something that I eat all year long.
Yeah. And so lettuce, you know, if you really like it, make that space for it. You know what I mean? Don't just, I'm not trying to say like, don't do it no matter what. You're not a good gardener. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like, because I get too that like by the end of summer, you're like, man, screw this. You know, I'm done. You know, I think, what was it your grandmother said?
Let the garden
when
run
the garden
wild.
goes wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a point where, I mean, you literally do. I know I do. Never heard it before, but I'm 100% let it run wild. But the thing is like at that point, like I really like lettuce too. And now you can do it. So I'm just saying, like it's food for thought. It's food
Nicely
for thought,
done.
you know?
Nicely
and
done.
It's just
food for thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like putting all this stuff into your garden, like the zucchinis and stuff like that, like pulling it out. Then, you know, there's still that opportunity.
I still stand by it's next level gardening, right? So I'm going to go back to, I'll listen to this episode
I'm
again.
with you on that.
You won't, but there's a point where I said something along the lines of, for me and some others, plant and basically switch over to maintaining. Right. You know, so for people that either have a small space or again, just want to kind of put those plants in the ground and then get food once it's ready. That isn't where they are. But the reason why I love this topic and the reason why I am interested in, we'll have to figure out how to not repeat what we've already covered, but make this a unique and special episode because it's really important, I think.
Oh, we're just going to repeat it. It's okay if we repeat it.
Everything. Exactly. Even including the doorbell ringing. And but it's super duper important because I think that it just shows kind of the difference in our gardening. Right. You know, and I'm sure I'm just going to keep on talking about 5,000 people. We should have made that a drinking game. So the 5,000, right. Super excited about that. Thank you guys again. I'm sure there is a combination of the two of us. I'm sure there's some folks that are just like you, some folks that are just like me, and some folks that are like neither, which I don't know if while you're listening, if you're like neither of us, but.
Because you're curious. So put it this way, though. Let's take it out of our situations and say you only have room for a really small bed, but you have a taste for all of this stuff. This applies to that person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that applies to the person that has one 4x4 bed. That's all you can have. You know, you live in a house with a postage stamp yard. This is what that person, you know, I mean, anybody can do it, but this really applies for the person with a small garden because there are a lot of people with small gardens.
And I think that's really, unfortunately, I still consider myself one, which I know, you know.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It doesn't mean that I don't feel that way.
But if you break down your garden bed by bed, then you do have a small garden.
But I also came from a place where for sure I had a small garden, and trying to break away from that thought pattern, right? The reason why I do like that for like all that we've talked about in this last few minutes about that for a small garden is a small garden, you might have one tomato plant. Like this year, clearly I went crazy with the tomato plants, but the most I've ever had was 5, right? And that was a stretch. One tomato plant is going to do it, if tomato plants at all, right? You know, so I like the idea of some folks are harvesting enough for a couple of meals and then moving on to another vegetable. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. I get it. It didn't feel like I got it, but I think I get it.
I think you get it. So since we're talking about seeding for in summer, I don't want to skip over one subject. Flowers.
You know what? Let me say this.
Just for you.
I feel like this has been a really fun conversation. It's been educational, informative. I don't feel like you need to make anything up to me. Although I welcome it and I appreciate it and I love it for you. Love you for it. Flowers. Let's go. All right. What were you going to say about flowers?
So, and I'm talking,
excited.
I'm talking about seeding flowers.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take it. It's flowers. Yeah. Sowing seeds. Yeah.
Do you have any that you could plant
Zinnias,
in summer?
Marigolds. Those are all that. Marigolds especially, which I know there's some people that aren't in the camp of that. Marigolds in general, but they will last all the way until the frost. So the point from when you're seeding now to when they come up, probably 45 days, even 2 months from now, you're going to enjoy that flower, and it's going to be in your garden until the cold weather kills it. Zinnias there, and just watch the package, because there's some that take like 70, 80, 90 days, and you don't want those. You want the ones that are like 35 to 50 days. So you can definitely drop those seeds. I don't know. No others come to mind.
I'm loaded because I'm actually working on a project.
Go.
Morning glories.
Oh, but those are, I'm looking for an ink pen to start writing down, because I'm sure I probably have the package of them.
But what?
They can be invasive, just as a note. They're beautiful.
Yeah, though. But they're annual, right?
Well, that's. I think that they can come back depending. Let's just say that.
So let me preface this whole conversation. If you're going to plant any of these things that we're talking about when it comes to flowers, make sure they're not invasive before you do it. But if you want color towards the end of the year, morning glories are one of them. Johnny jump ups.
I've not heard of that.
Just like a viola. Mm-hmm. They're in the same family, I believe. I hope I'm not making an ass of myself, but I'm gonna go ahead and just stay firm with that. I've written it down. It's okay. Asters are another one, I believe. Seed? Cosmos. From seed? Okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. So like I was just researching this last night or past couple days, because this is kind of the project I want to do. And marigolds is one of them. I believe black-eyed Susans was on there too. Yeah, I can
imagine that. They have a longer season, so put your hat on, because I've purchased flowers, so it's been said. Yeah. And I am so happy about it because they make me happy. But I also was,
You're such a girl.
Oh no, I'm just a flower lover. I'm a flower girl. No, okay. So I also was thinking to myself, because I feel like I'm getting my vegetable garden for summer under control. And I feel like I have about 2 to 3 weeks before I really need to buckle down for my fall garden. So all of that reluctance in the first hour of this episode doesn't mean I'm not going to give it a try. Like, again, there's levels to this shit, and I'm ready to move to that next level. But I was thinking to myself, I wish I would have sowed more seeds, flower seeds. Remember I said that? Then I said, you know what? Huh.
That's where I was too.
Why not?
And I was thinking,
not sow more?
Well, I don't have a lot of fall flowering stuff around my yard. So I was thinking, I was like, man, I'm going to miss out on all this color. So I started looking into it. And one of the ones is going to be snapdragons.
Yeah. So
that's another one. Because in my area, they're actually perennial-ish.
It's in my top 12. Definitely in my top 15 favorite.
They're perennial-ish. So... And then it's a good time to take cuttings for your flowers and propagate them.
I don't normally do that. I know. All this work, man.
Coming soon.
I know. I'm just,
It's so hard. When you watch some of these videos I'm going to do, you're going to be like, that shit's so easy.
No, I know it's.
Why?
But if you know a thing about me, I tend to overthink things when it comes to this. Yeah,
I know a lot of things about you.
And that's definitely one of them, right? Top 10, top 5. I love to make things out of a project, but a project is a project, right? So, cuttings. Yeah, I'm not so sure, but go on. I know it's almost ridiculous. I almost feel like one of those people that eat the peanut butter, banana, and mayo sandwiches. Like, it's that ridiculous. Like, my paws around this, but
yeah. It's all about being wasteful for me. And it's like, hey, why not? It's so easy to do. But, what I'm doing is I'm taking a pallet and I'm going to break it apart and make a planter to put on my porch. And I'm going to plant these things, spring. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it's definitely going to set it up for fall. So those are the flowers. And you made me go off track, and I don't know enough about it. So hold on one second. Yes, I have your card. I'm so locked into what it was that I lost it, but you got the basic few that you can do now. And there's such a short time too, that there's not really much. Yes, Batavia.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I appreciate you taking my question. So there is, it all depends on your why, right? You know, so I love how you described, I'm going to miss out on these colors, right? You know, and the level that you're being converted into a flower lover is like astronomical. Like this is going much faster than we planned. We as in, you know, me and the garden gods. But anywho, I am anxious. Like, when is the palette project? When is that going to air, do you think?
Okay. I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, I could save it for,
Sooner than later.
actually have
within the next month
palettes. So I did this quick, you know, garden tip about like, don't be afraid to ask for, you know, like free things, right? So and scavenge, right? You know, so I have a couple of palettes that I was going to use for a different project, but I ended up scrapping that project, but I still have the palettes. And I have a space in my front yard, my front porch, that it's actually pretty shady. And I have goosebumps when it comes to the thought of being able to plant like flowers. I do have a couple of flowers I'm going to plant on the railing, but flowers on the actual porch, and the idea of being able to use
fuchsia,
the color fuchsia.
No,
I do love the idea of being able to use these palettes. So I have my list is so long right now. That's why I'm like, can you give me a few weeks before you drop this, you know, nugget on us?
Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit, because I'm trying to. I'm very, when I do something like this, I'm very specific on how I want it, and I don't want to go get another palette. So I have one palette just laying around. I'm like, I got to use it for something, and I figured it out. So I'm doing what I need to do, but it's gonna be a little bit.
I got time.
But and I wasn't really gonna film it, but since you asked, I'll film it.
I appreciate that.
So yeah. I think people will get a kick out. I mean, I'm sure there's other videos about it, but you know, it's more about what I'm going to put in it. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some seeds and some transplants, maybe. But if I don't get around to it like this week or something, I'm probably going to start the seeds in separate trays and then put them in. I think it's just so I can kind of get a jump on them, get them going. But so yeah, that's my project going on right now. There's your garden update for me.
About it.
But do you know what time it is?
That's me rubbing my stomach.
It's time for the recipe of the day, featuring Batavia, the front yard gardener.
Okie doke. So this is like a do it right now recipe. If you want to pull this from your garden, because we've already talked about in this episode kind of some things that are bolting in our garden. But we're also kind of in the middle of grilling season, right? So the recipe is for a grilled head of romaine lettuce. How about that, right? It is actually, I'm so mad I didn't use my grill for this with the romaine that I had. So I'm actually going to my next trip at the grocery store, pick up some, because it doesn't have to be from your garden. It'd be nice if it was. But take a head of romaine lettuce. I'd say if you're a fan of it, one per person. If you're not sure if folks are going to be crazy about it, I'd use one head per 2 people. Right. So super duper simple. Take your romaine lettuce, the root of it, where all the lettuce is connected. I'd shave off kind of the brown part of that root, but don't cut it off because you want the lettuce leaves to remain intact with the root. Then I'd also take the other end of the lettuce head and trim off the edges. So you kind of have a clean cut there. We're going to use a marinade. And so we're going to do, I'm a big fan, and I know some people aren't, of olive oil. You could probably use some other type of oil like coconut oil to make your marinade. But I'm going to use olive oil, about 3 or so tablespoons. I'm going to add in some fresh herbs because I have them in my garden. So this is an opportunity to use something like, oregano or rosemary. It's whatever your taste palate's going to cause for. I know Ben's favorites. You can also use dried herbs. So just sprinkle that in to taste into the marinade. Do about 2 teaspoons of vinegar. So we're adding oil, vinegar, seasoning. So I do a apple cider vinegar or a balsamic vinegar even. Stir that together. You've already turned on your grill or you have kind of gotten your coals if you're using charcoal hot. The key here is going to be make sure that the portion of the grill you're going to use is clean. So you don't want anything left over from what you may have already been grilling. And the timing has to be right because you really want to serve this directly after you've grilled it. So just before your dinner or lunch. So take a brush and then just slather on the marinade. We've stirred it all together. It's all mixed in great and gooey. I wouldn't bother about chilling it. Slather it on to the romaine heads and then just put it on the grill about 2 minutes per side or until it gets to the portion of it being charred in the way that you want. Now you're taking it off of the grill. You can decide now if you'd like to cut it. You could actually chop it up if you want to make it into a salad, or I've actually served it as the whole romaine head. This is the part, again, that could make it delicious, or you could opt out if it's not your thing. Parmesan cheese and a squeeze or 2 of lemon juice. So fresh lemon, cut it in half again so it's in fourths. Squeeze that lemon juice on it, sprinkle some Parmesan cheese, and voila. It's deliciousness. Yeah.
That sounds good. It's funny. I've grilled lettuce before and it was a totally different recipe though.
I just make sure you don't put the loose leaves of lettuce on the grill. You don't want that. So keep that romaine head intact.
Yeah, ours is completely different.
Oh, I'd love to hear yours then. Yeah, let's go for it.
You want to hear it now? You just take a leaf of lettuce, rub some Carolina ketchup on it, and then put it on high, and just get it a little bit brown. Because you got to be careful.
Yeah. That's a part of like keeping it whole.
And then you take it off and eat it.
I've never heard of that, but perhaps.
You don't know what Carolina ketchup is?
Is it not just a regular ketchup from Carolina? Oh, okay.
No. So I'm not even going to say it on here. I want anybody that's listening that knows what Carolina ketchup is to DM me on Instagram, and I will give you a shout out.
And you will inform me.
I'll tell you later,
I want to wait to hear what someone describes it as. So let me know when they DM you.
She's going to look it up as soon as she gets off. I'm going
to be okay with that surprise. Or we're going to find out that no one else is going to know of the 5,000 people. No one else is going to know. Plus the 2 friends that they shared this episode with.
If there's anybody that's listening in North Carolina, they know what Carolina ketchup is. True. So maybe South Carolina, but I don't know. So it's and you don't usually think about grilling lettuce either. That's the weird thing about it. So if you pull it out, people will be like, "What the hell?" And then they eat it and they're like,
it's a really attractive kind of piece to your plate. And it's actually, we talked about this a couple episodes ago where you talked about like people just know about salads, right? It's like, what are you actually eating? And it's just one spin that definitely looks at leafy greens differently.
Can I tell you something? So after that episode, I was like super worried that I came across like an asshole for what I said. And then I went back and listened to it. Like I was like, I'm going to go listen to this one part. And I was like, oh,
no, it wasn't at all. It wasn't that bad in the moment. I was just giving you a hard time. And actually, of course I listened to it again. And I listened to you saying like, I'm going to come across as a real dick. And I'm just like, and I doubled down like, you sure did. But no, it's all good, man.
I literally lost sleep
I'm
over
sorry,
that.
buddy.
Because that's not my goal. No, it's not you. It's I don't want to discourage anybody from anything ever when it comes to this space. And anything that I say, I don't want it to come across as, to discourage somebody from doing anything. So, but no, and it's like, and plus when you pull out that lettuce and you put it on the plate, it's a showstopper. Yeah. Because it's so different, that's you want to have a garden party.
Yeah.
Get char marks on it and stuff. Yeah. But don't give it to them wilted like hell.
And make sure the lettuce hasn't bolted. You don't want to use that bitter lettuce in there either. So
unless you don't like them.
Yeah, there's that.
Unless you don't like them.
I have a special plate for you.
Yeah. This one I made just for you because we're best friends.
No, I'll stand here while you eat it.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's a tough one, man. That's a real tough one. But yeah, that's and grilling vegetables. We haven't given a grill any love either. Damn it, we are
slacking.
Just.
I feel like we're keeping up with 90% of our commitment to listeners, and like 10%, which I'm going to say that's the recipe. Like we're falling down.
We need to be cutting edge. That's it.
From this
more grilling,
forward. Yeah.
more fruits. We're doing this. This is it. We're
giving
like
you recipes for air. We're going to be cooking air.
Have I ever told you the Aeritarian story?
And I already know.
I'm about to drop some.
I don't know, but I know that. No, I don't know the story, but I know that I'm going to love it. Go ahead.
So I'm going to go ahead and say this. There's going to be some language in a second. I'm going to drop the F-bomb, but you can't tell the story without it. So I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan.
Yeah.
Huge Joe Rogan. Everything he does. And I'm not taking this as a quote from The Office. I literally have, like, from when he was in news radio on, as soon as I found out about him. So he had this TV show on Sci-Fi about conspiracy theories, which I'm a big conspiracy theory fan. They're just fun to think about. I don't follow all of them. But he went to this thing and they were showing how a tornado was made or something, or how something could stop a tornado. I don't know. It's not the point of the story. And he walks in and there was this Native American guy's picture on the wall, like very stoic. You know what I mean? Like he looked like he knew, like he was the man. You know what I mean? And he walks in and he's like, "Oh, that's a cool picture, man." He's like, "Yeah." And the guy that runs the place, he's like, "Yeah, that's a good friend of mine." And Joe Rogan was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. He's he looks like he's real powerful and da da da." And the guy is like, "Yeah, he's an Aeritarian," and he goes, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, he hasn't eaten or drinking anything in 3 years." And Joe Rogan was like, "Man, fuck you. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." He's like, "Fuck you and your Aeritarian friend," and just walked off. And it's like, what a great answer for something so absurd.
Shut it down. Yeah.
I mean, and the thought that you're going to walk in and see somebody who's going to talk about something like this and start off with that, you're already like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm walking out. So that's my Aeritarian story. It's not even my story, but it's a story.
We're still going to bring some recipes regarding air on, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you an air recipe one day if you want. I got one. Grief.
I'm totally joking.
Where's the camera? I'll make up one. But no, so I think we went a little bit off topic today, but I think it worked out.
I hope so. Well, you all will tell us if it didn't, right? Yeah, maybe not so much. Yeah.
No, don't tell us if it didn't. It's cool.
No,
we just want love.
DM me and tell me if you're like, I was an hour and 31 minutes in and I just said, I'm giving up. We're at like an hour and 32 minutes.
I'm joking. It was, no, and I think actually what we've done is we've kind of set up the conversation here for multiple shows down the road, that because some of these topics we talked about really need to be delved in some more. But apparently my take on it is, don't be afraid to plant something in the summer. We've given you a couple of them. Do your flowers if you want. Batavia, she might not feel that way.
My take is it's never too late to plant something. Even if it's something you're planting that you're going to get some harvest from next year. So
that's true. You know what? Your take's better than mine.
I knew it when it was in my head, but I'm not one to brag.
Yeah. So, that being said, I want to put out a request out there. I have a confession to make. I really like looking at other people's gardens. Oh. I really like to see how they create their spaces. And I'm putting out the call out there. I'm asking people, if you want, DM me on Instagram a picture of your garden, and I'm going to start putting posts together as much as I can get, I'm going to put posts together highlighting different gardens of our listeners and stuff, because you guys are special to it. We have a lot of followers on Instagram, and if you listen in both places, you guys are special. But our listeners, I mean, I feel like you guys really know more about us, and we want to show off the stuff that you do, and I think it's really cool. I've got a couple pictures. I got one pic. I can't wait to put it out there. It's so cute. So, DM me or Batavia, whatever, and she'll share them with me, and we can make them and post them. But, definitely if you want to do that, that'd be cool.
Listen,
thank you guys.
I was just texting, I think yesterday. A new gardener was talking about, seeing their first tomato, right? And I think the comment was something like, well, I know this is old bag for you. And I'm like, I literally am as excited when I see and hear about other people's gardens as if it were my own. Like, I am so I love this idea. I can't wait to see some of the pictures. And I mean, if you have a garden that's on your banister, we want to see it. If you have a garden that, blocks off a city street, we want to see it. Like everything in between. So yeah, please do share.
Doesn't matter. It can be any garden too. But I mean, really, if it's your own person, because your garden really says a lot about you. So, if you guys have that, please, I think it'd be a lot of fun. Like I said, you guys are special, especially the ones that have been listening to us. You've been with us. We hit a big milestone. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, the next milestone's a ways off. So maybe we'll be making that announcement soon, but we'll be happy with what we got for now.
And we need to wrap because you're not going to make me cry. I have been holding on strong. This new format.
You're not doing a good job.
This new format. You're not doing a good job. All of my words are drawn out longer because I'm trying to pull it together.
So that's it. So thank you guys. Visit us at all our spots and let us know how we can help you. We love helping you. We love talking to you. We love you guys, and grow strong this summer.
See ya.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. You can find us at Backyard Gardens the Movie on Facebook and Backyard Gardener on Instagram. And YouTube is Backyard Gardener, where I'm doing videos showing cooking and building gardens and gardening tips, all kinds of good stuff. And you can find Batavia at...
You'll find me on Instagram at B_BetterGarden. And then you'll find me on Facebook, same name. And then I'm also over on YouTube at Be Better Garden. I am sharing #GardenJoy every chance I get. I hope you enjoy.
So if you have any questions, hit us up on all of our platforms, anywhere you want, and we will be more than happy to help you with what you can. And again, thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next time. Cut.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.